Hey Internet, I'm Simon Squibb, your host at the Good Luck Club podcast. Our mission is to help anybody out there that's thinking of starting a business do just that. Equally, if you've started a business and are struggling, maybe you need a little bit of inspiration and knowledge. And we hope by interviewing some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs and change makers that you'll get the knowledge you need to become the person you want and turn your business into that dream company. I personally have started 17 companies from scratch and have invested in over 65 startups. When I sat down and analysed how I did it, I discovered a secret. It was all luck. I'm here to tell you, in my opinion, without luck, it ain't gonna work. Each week, I will discuss with my guests this theory and see if luck is a skill as I feel it is. I hope you enjoy our episode this week. Welcome to this week's episode of the Good Luck Club podcast. My entrepreneur this week is David Yeung. He's the CEO and founder of Green Monday Group. David, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure. David, I wonder if you could start off by just telling my audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a serial entrepreneur, just really love the energy, the passion of entrepreneurship, and this drive to make change, to make something better happen. Well, for my work in particular, the Green Monday Group is about promoting a more sustainable, healthy food paradigm. And the way we do it is through food innovation, is to create the future food platform that basically bring together the most innovative plant-based brands from around the world, and to create the movement of Green Monday to advocate everyone to go plant-based at least one day a week. Personally, I've been on a plant-based diet for almost 20 years, so this is not something that I just picked up, a couple years ago, but rather a very firm commitment from myself. And I'm just very lucky to say that right now that personal commitment and personal passion has become my full-time career and venture.
I think it's very inspiring what you do, and I've been a big fan of your movement since the very beginning. Maybe you could define for us as an outset question what success means to you.
Yeah, I think this is this question or this topic alone, we can spend 30 minutes or an hour just to discuss what is success, right? I mean, for the longest time, of course, most people would quantify or define success as, fame, money, wealth, etc., or ranking, possessions, how many things do you own? But I think that has really evolved, right? I mean, the last maybe 10, 15 years, many, many more people are saying, well, I mean, not that they are against more material things, but with the world we're in, with all the problems that are happening, can success be defined in a broader way, not just personal interest or personal benchmark, but rather something that's much more holistic, much more comprehensive, much more about common good. So right now, I think, this is my definition of success. And I do believe that, in the future going forward, this is hopefully the direction that more entrepreneurs and companies will take on. And that is, what is the collective impact that we make, positive impact that we make to the society and the world. Now, if we are solving a global problem, and we are able to come up with solutions and innovations to address those problems, then by default, your company will be successful in terms of, revenue, in terms of company size and all that by default, because it means that you are doing something important enough to solve or address the world's problem. But the primary definition is, how big of an impact or how big of a change can we create to lead the world to a better state. So that really, to me, is kind of, from a macro point of view, what success should be. And then on a more micro point of view, just on a personal level, I think it's about living my life to the fullest. is about maximizing the meaning and the impact of my life. That, whichever day, whichever age when I depart from this world, what will people say? It's not really about leaving a legacy. That's not what I'm saying. During my journey, during my lifetime, I have made this difference in our community, in our society, in our world. And that, to me, is that I would consider that a successful life.
There's two interesting points there, and I want the audience to pick up on your kind of inspirational, I guess, company organizational goal at the collective impact point alongside, your personal goal, because I think they are separate. When I ask this question, most people don't separate it like you just did. It's quite interesting that you separate it, but they're linked, of course, but they can be different, your company and personal goal. But I feel like you're very enlightened. And how did you get this way? Was it 20 years ago when you started eating plant-based diet? What changed? How did this happen?
Well, you just used the word enlightened, right? I love reading and learning about Zen, about Buddhism. To me, Buddhism is not a religion. It is a philosophy about how to live life wisely, happily, joyfully. So I am a student of Buddha. I'm not a very good student, but I am a student. I do very much aspire to learn and to practice the wisdom taught by Buddha. And really, the key fundamental essence of Buddhism is about enlightenment. In fact, the word Buddha itself stands for the enlightened one. Like, Buddha doesn't mean God. Buddha doesn't mean, the omnipotent, just superpower. Buddha, the name itself, stands for the enlightened one. So it is about having a different viewpoint, a different perspective on life. Now, most of us, we are living in a very confined, worldview. So we think of the world, or we think of our career and our success in a relatively narrow manner. And what the enlightenment, from, that Buddha is teaching is, hey, there's a much, much bigger world outside. And once you get out of the box, once you, look from that angle into our own life, then you realize that, hey, what troubles me or what we think give us happiness may not really be the real answer. So yes, I benefit a lot from reading and learning about Buddhism and Zen. Now, again, I don't think it has any conflict with any other religion. It really is just a philosophy of life.
Actually, I couldn't agree more. I'm religion agnostic personally, and I'm open to all conversations on all religions. I find it all interesting. But I have a Buddha statue in every single one of my rooms in my home, in part because I don't see it as a religious symbol. I see it as a philosophy of do good to people and think deep and learn and those types of things, right? So I never tell people to be a Buddhist myself. It's not really about that. It's not about following a particular.
So I love one of the practices that most Buddhist students would do is simply practice mindfulness. Now, and nowadays it has become more widespread that again it become religion agnostic, and it's simply about giving some time to yourself. Focus on the present moment, focus on your breath. And just by doing that, just by practicing that it sharpens our focus. It allows us to block out noise. It allows us to focus on what are the important matters on hand. So in fact, mindfulness is, there are a lot of study and a lot of books right now that says, mindfulness is almost like a secret a secret recipe or secret formula behind a lot of successful people is they use this as a window to give themselves more personal time and to really focus and sharpen their mind. when they want to focus on something.
It's becoming more mainstream now. Like my 3-year-old in his nursery, they're even doing mindfulness, and so it's kind of fascinating. Yeah. But when did this? I mean, as let's go back to David as a child. Then were you always this way, or did it this philosophy of things like Green Monday and the way you think has it evolved over time, or was it with you when you were young, or was there someone that inspired you? How did it happen?
Well, I always say that my dad is the one single person who inspired me the most. He passed away about 11 years ago, but he was a very successful business person. He created his own business. And then, later on, he sold the business and then started to dedicate his life to philanthropy, helping people, just giving back. And when he gave back, it was he achieved his highest level of joy. And I could see that. Now, he was the one who really start to study and start to practice Buddhism. And he also was the first one in the family to turn vegetarian. So, but he never asked us to follow him. He just kind of did it by example. And, he would never say, hey, you got to follow what I'm doing. But, slowly and gradually, right, you see him and, he became more and more at peace with himself. And you could see that no matter how big of a crisis was thrown at him, he could still somehow manage to navigate those crises or whatever problems they were with calmness, with clarity, and with efficiency too. So I was like, and most important of all, with joy. Even at difficult times, he was still able to navigate with joy. Now, of course, no one wants to have trouble, but it is really about your attitude towards those problems, right? I mean, if you're frustrated, if you get angry, then it doesn't help anything. So he really taught me a lot of that just by example. I mean, it wasn't like he was force feeding any of these ideas on me. Now, as for my diet preference, now even when I was a child, I was never too fond of the idea of eating meat or eating seafood. I remember one of the most traumatic scene when I was a child was when my mom took me to the market. And in Asia, as you probably know, is people actually, like, let's say they go to the fish market and they see, oh, this one is looks like it's the most fresh. And then, like, literally, the person would take the fish out of the tank and then butcher. and I remember witnessing that scene, like when I was 6 or 7 years old. And I immediately told my mom that, please don't bring me back again, And I start to have this kind of just this kind of a feeling that, these are not the things I really want to eat. But of course, at that time, I was too young. So I wasn't immediately telling my mom when I was 7 years old that, I don't want to follow, what the family or what other people were eating. But then about 20 years ago, again, I can go into more details, but with our limited time, I'll just say, there was a time, a period or for a few weeks when I started to just reflect a little bit. And I said, you know what, I don't think this goes well with me. This is against my personal feeling and about my personal just principle. I think it's unnecessary to cause any harm to other lives. So I turned plant-based in January of 2001.
Wow. And just listening to you, David, I've always had this feeling you're this old soul. That you've got some, there's a 6 or 7 year old making that awareness switch. I think is amazing. I just wanted to. It's funny as well because the disassociation we have with food is astonishing. Now I am a meat eater, so just to kind of, I am someone that actually likes me. However, I remember when I went to Hong Kong in 1997, I first landed in Hong Kong, got into my tiny little apartment, which shocked me just how crazy small it was. And then I went to Welcome, the local supermarket for anyone listeners in the US and Europe. And I went to buy a chicken. And when I bought that chicken, it was the first time, so I'm 22, 23 years old. It was the first time in my life I'd ever been handed a chicken in a supermarket with the leg still attached. And I suddenly realized it was an animal. I asked them to take the legs off, but to them, like, oh, they're their delicacy. Yeah, we can put them in a bag for you. Sure, like, can you take the head off? Like the whole presentation of the animal is so different in the West. I mean, for example, again, your point, there are very, very, very few. I can only think of one or two in Chinatown where you would actually be able to go and get a fish out of a fish tank and then cut it up and eat it. Whereas in Asia, that's very common. That's how they prove it's fresh.
It's totally common. Yeah, exactly. It's that is like people would choose the freshest, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, that fish is swimming.
The freshest. Really, they're actually still alive. They're still deciding which one that's still alive in the tank is freshest. Yeah. Which I think is amazing, isn't it? It's just, but I think in a way the best education for sometimes is exactly the experience you had as a 6 or 7 year old. No one in the Western world has that experience unless you've got Chinese family. I'm married to a Chinese person, so I get that experience. But for a lot of people, they'd never even had that experience, right?
Yeah, so I guess, well, first of all, when you're a child, your first instinct is just very genuine, right? It's like ew or yuck or please don't do that. And I think all children and all human beings, really, I mean, we have compassion. We don't want to see, like lives being killed in front of us. In fact, we don't want any lives to be killed. So, and then fast forward to today, the fact that I'm working on a venture to promote plant-based diet, to have my own company to innovate plant-based meats to replace animal meats, and to promote and to enable people with a much more sustainable, healthy, and humane options. I mean, I feel incredibly blessed to be in this position. To every day, I know I'm making a difference. My team knows collectively we are making a difference. So, so that background of mine, from even when I was 6 or 7 years old, I guess quietly planted the seed in what I end up doing right now.
I'm always interested in the family history and the influence. Again, I think about my audience and how their parents influenced them to make decisions today. Your father was clearly very influential. I'm always interested in the ages. So, for example, for me, my father died when I was 15 years old. So one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast today is because I feel like I wish he'd done a podcast about what he was doing and what he was about. So I could have learned that, because he never really talked to me about that stuff when I was younger. So, part of the reason I'm now doing it is kind of getting the knowledge from people like yourself downloaded for that 15-year-old me. So I'm influenced a lot by my experiences. But how old were you when your dad switched, for example, to being plant-based food?
I was in my early 20s when he switched.
Oh, so it was quite late. So you had this 6 or 7 year old experience and decided to switch away from wanting to eat fish, for example.
Now, I didn't switch at that time. I mean, it was a traumatic moment for me, but I was too young to just tell my family that, hey, I want to go on my own, right? So when I turned vegetarian in early 2001, I was 24 years old. Oh, yeah. So I was 24 at that time. Right. But that seed was planted when I was 6 or 7.
But why did your father switch? Do you understand why he switched?
Well, I mean, he practiced Buddhism. And again, the core theme about Buddhism is the whole thesis of Buddhism is about compassion, right? So he made that decision himself. He didn't impose anything on the rest of his family, on us. And then one day I came to the same conclusion, and I went up to him and say, hey, now I think I know why you are doing what you're doing. And he had this very, satisfied, look and smile. And it's just, at different point of our life, of course, but came to the same conclusion. Of course, he was overjoyed that I came to that conclusion.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a younger brother, younger sister.
And are they also plant-based diet?
My sister is now. My brother is not.
Okay, I guess it's just some people take longer than others to see the benefits, or is it?
Well, I guess, I always like to say that even my wife is not a full vegetarian or vegan right now, although I'm daily preaching this. But that's okay. I mean, the key is about, and that is really the spirit of Green Monday, is about the portion, it's about the ratio. Not everyone can become a vegan tomorrow. I mean, in fact, I think that most likely is impossible. But everyone should switch, 20, 30%. And of course, the more the better. So in my wife's case, she's about 80% plant-based. And occasionally she would have her, chicken or fish, meals, especially when we eat out and, she has her own entree and I have my own. But at home, we are pretty much all plant-based. So yeah, I mean, we don't have to, like the fact that my brother is not vegetarian, but I would never bug him and I would never judge anything. I think it's, everyone needs to come to their own decision and conclusion. But I definitely think that the ratio can switch.
So you mentioned earlier, you were talking about how grateful you are for what you're able to do today and what you're involved in, how purposeful it feels. And I feel like the word luck almost slipped out of your mouth around this subject. But what is your view on luck, and has it played a role in your life?
Now, anyone who enjoys any form of success, right? I think it would be way too self-centered to just say that, hey, I am that much smarter than the other people. I'm that much smarter than, my competitors. That's why I deserve my success. Quite frankly, luck always plays a role, in anyone's journey. Good luck and bad luck, of course, But that said, though, I mean, I do think, especially, again, in the context of Zen Buddhism, is that we do create our own luck. The more we plant the seeds, the more we, create good karma, the more we build the good vibe, the positive vibe around us, then ultimately we also benefit from that vibe and that karma. So yes, luck is definitely a factor, but at the end, you are responsible for your luck. Now, if you always take advantage of people, if you are consistently lying and just tricking other people, then maybe short term you may benefit or you gain something, but in the medium to long run, I mean, you will absolutely, I mean, you have to pay for that eventually. So. And then the moment when you have to pay, I mean, do you say, oh, just blame it on bad luck, or did you dig that hole for yourself to fall into, right? So yeah, I mean, luck is a factor, but at the same time, we got to take responsibility for what we do. And if at this moment, I mean, and for a lot of people who are listening, now, if you think you're in a trouble or difficult, patch in your life, right? If you think this is a very difficult moment and you're suffering from a lot of bad luck, now, first of all, I think do remember that everyone goes through these, moments, and good luck, bad luck. Sometimes it's almost like cycle, and the bad luck period maybe is the time to build your resilience, to build up yourself, right? The character of your person. Because at the end, the so-called lucky people, they have all gone through that tough period and they emerge stronger, more resilient, and just tougher to handle these moments.
And one of my favorite Buddha quotes is that everybody in the world has 10,000 hours of bad luck and 10,000 hours of good luck. And often it's just a matter of perspective.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Do you think entrepreneurs are born or bred?
I must say, I mean, I have come across some people who are very smart, who are very hardworking, and they have a lot of the elements for success, but they may not necessarily be good entrepreneurs. I mean, one of the things about entrepreneurs is we take risk. We aim or we strive to solve problems, and we see things before other people see them. Sometimes it's not a good thing because you may be so far ahead of the time. But so I think it's half and half. I mean, I can't really say, even though there are obviously courses of entrepreneurship in college and in a lot of places, and of course there are plenty of books to teach about entrepreneurship. So yes, there are elements that you can learn, but there are some fundamental characters or traits in people that some people simply don't have those. And in that sense, if they're not born with those qualities, then doesn't mean they cannot be successful, but it just means that they may not necessarily be good entrepreneurs.
I actually know exactly what you mean. I was reading about your growth and how you're now in over 30 countries. When I first came back to London 3 years ago, I joined a few groups. And it was very interesting to see how people had posted, "Today's Monday, don't eat any meat." And I think the influence you've had, for my listeners to understand, I mean, you are what you say on the tin, a Green Monday group, but you pioneered this concept that Monday should be the day when people don't eat meat. And I was so proud to read that when I said to I know that person who started that movement. It's kind of my first post in one of the groups here with a link to what you're doing. But I know for entrepreneurs out there that love the idea of not only doing something purposeful but also growing it, can you share any tips? I mean, how did you grow it to 30 countries first of all, and how did you manage to get this business off the ground?
Wow, that's a broad question. Now, first of all, I gotta say that the idea of not eating meat on Monday or meat reduction, obviously in the UK, Sir Paul McCartney and his family pioneered the movement of meatless Monday. Meat-free Monday, I should say, meat-free Monday in the UK. And in the US, there was some also organization called Meatless Monday. Now, but when I first heard that concept, particularly in Asia, I knew immediately that the name meatless may not be the best word, especially when you translate that to Chinese or many Asian languages. It means more than just not eating meat. The connotation of meatless is actually foodless, so nothing to eat. So it's not just not eating meat, it's just no food. So I'm pretty sure that won't take off, right? Before we get to 30 countries, I don't even think we would last for more than 30 days. So that's number one. Is
in Asia that the translation. You've actually met Paul McCartney, right? He's a big fan of what you're doing.
I did, yeah. Well, that is one of the most surreal moments of my life. Yes.
I think I liked that picture twice when it came up.
I mean, even right now, when I show that picture or when I see that picture, I mean, I'm like, did this really happen? I have to poke myself. But how to get it off the ground though? Now, creating the movement, something that is simple, viral, actionable, to me, that is the essential elements of a movement. Is obviously you want to get as many people to join as possible. So it must be something very catchy, something that is easily hashtagable, something that can be spread on Instagram or social media in a very viral way. So simple, viral, actionable. Now, action is, if we talk about green, we talk about saving the world, saving animals. There must be something that they can do. You can't just talk about a concept. So in green, right, in sustainability, the 3 R's are often mentioned, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle. But I guess maybe it's because I have this entrepreneur bias. I just thought that is the right concept, but not actionable. So reduce, for example, right? Hey, let's meet at 5 p.m. today and let's go reduce. Reduce what? Where, how, what are you talking about? Reduce to what level? Is the concept itself, of course, is absolutely correct, but it is not, in my word, it is not actionable. Green Monday, on the other hand, is something that everyone can participate, right? Now we set the dates or the day on a weekly basis. People, of course, can choose Friday, Sunday, Tuesday, whatever they like. But as long as you set a date, and in this case, let's say Monday, and then the action is, switch from, your meat diet to 1 day non-meat or less meat diet. And that is something that, a 3-year-old to an 83-year-old can participate. So that's number one, is how to get the movement going. And then second is to build the solutions, is to build the tools to empower people to change. Now, I always knew this part is from day one, I knew that sustainability must come with innovation. We cannot just keep saying the world is dying, the planet is sick, and then, we need to save polar bears. Now, of course, I want to save polar bears too, but you cannot just talk about the problem. You got to give people something that they can actually do or switch to, right? So in the case of transportation, okay, yes, we don't want to continue with fossil fuel cars, then we need to have clean energy car or renewable energy car, right? And of course, Elon Musk, Tesla, and all the new renewable energy vehicles are now becoming more and more popular. So it's not like you tell people to never drive again or never fly again, but rather give them an alternative, and in fact, a superior alternative. So yeah, that's the foundation on how I got my venture off the ground. Is I knew all along that there's the advocacy and movement side, and then there's the solution and empowerment side, and they must go hand in hand. One cannot go without the other. But if you can combine them, then it becomes a super powerful engine to catalyze change.
So how did you get it off the ground? The social venture model, again, I know a lot of my listeners are really interested in this. A lot of the next generation do have real purpose. They want to work for companies that have purpose, and they want to build things that have purpose. But how did you do it?
Wow. Okay. So first of all, just like any venture, social or regular business, you need team. You got to have, I am never arrogant or, confident enough to just say that I can do everything. So the very, very core piece was, I was lucky, to have, these are people I've known for a long time, but I was lucky to bring them on board, or to we can resonate enough to say that, hey, let's do this together. So my co-founder, my core team members, these are, friends whom I've known for a long time, and they share the same passion on this subject. So that's number one, right? You don't build a company by yourself. And at the end, how to create the most, comprehensive skill set and platform, you got to just have the right partners and people. So that's number one. Number two, of course, is to come up with the model. What are we trying to build? What are we trying to build, and how does that solve the problem that we want to solve? So as I said earlier, the movement and, the foundation, Green Monday Foundation, and then the business side, which is the solutions. Now, of course, we couldn't do everything at one time. So I did kind of lay them out from a timeline standpoint and say, hey, roughly this is, component A, and we'll spend, let's say, 2 years on that. And then maybe that will be, then the market and the world will be ready for component B, C, D, and E. So yeah, that's how we kind of methodically and gradually grew this business. We are ambitious. We want to make a difference, but at the same time, we are also patient and methodical. I think that is they are not contradictory. The fact that you are aggressive, you want to achieve something that we aim high. But at the same time, on a day-to-day execution, we got to be disciplined, we got to be methodical, and got to be patient. I mean, you know, Amazon, Apple, any company in the world, when they say it's an overnight success, that overnight probably took 10 years or 20 years.
Totally.
Yeah.
Did you get investors to support you?
We do have some individual investors, family offices, but when we started back in 2012, or more on the business side, 2015, this concept was still very foreign to anyone, particularly in Asia. I mean, I remember when we were pitching or just talking to investors, potential investors, right? I mean, everyone's like, okay, we'll focus on AI, blockchain, fintech, plant-based meats, alternative protein. What are we talking about? And to be honest, I mean, there were numerous occasions that we were mocked, by whoever we were talking to, and it wasn't the most pleasant experience. But I mean, thankfully, myself and my partner, we come from business families. So we have a little bit of capital ourselves to kick off the company and to fund. If not for that, I'll be very honest, I don't think there will be Green Monday the way it is today.
Yeah, because I know a lot of my listeners, I get asked this question a lot. They want to start a business, they've got a social enterprise. It feels like a lot of the investment community just isn't geared up to support a social enterprise. I think this is, I hope programs like this, I hope sharings like this can just inspire and can trigger more investors and more, people to think with kind of a more open mind. And now, of course, I can guarantee it. I'm not saying that every social venture is going to be, a successful one. In fact, there's no guarantee of anything. But at least think with that direction, right? Not just pure, financial return, not just pure, numbers. But actually, I really think impact investing can be extremely lucrative when it comes to investment return. The reason is that if a company truly is solving a big social problem, a big world problem, right? Then that company is important. And if a company is important, then chances are it has value. And, now again, I don't know what industry that belongs to, but a valuable company, that is solving big global problems. I mean, how can that not be a good investment? So eventually it will be a good financial return. So in our case, today, now we are attracting a lot more interest. In fact, I mean, on a day in, day out basis, we're getting calls, inquiries, and things like that. But usually at that time, I won't say it necessarily late to the game, but it's just not, you're not helping the entrepreneurs when they need help most. I'm actually working on a social enterprise business right now myself, and it's a bit shocking, the investment community around this. You make me want to do like a joint podcast show with you where we interview these VCs and put them on the spot and start to change the industry. Because I like your point earlier around like sometimes these things that, yes, more people should invest in social impact businesses. And I agree with everything you've just said, but then they don't. So it would be interesting to actually create maybe some mechanism that could actually make them, I'm going to use your word, switch to just being a invest to make money investment vehicle into
the simple solution or recommendation I can give to anyone, frankly, is just allocate, right? Let's just say allocate 10%, okay, to impact, and again use a different mindset when you evaluate companies. Again, that is not the same as philanthropy or donation. I'm not asking people to use like a charity mindset. That's a big difference. Impact investing is investing, but just with a different frame to gauge companies and entrepreneurs. I think it would again, I'm not saying it guarantees success. Just like any business, there's no guarantee. But simply start from an allocation. I mean, 10%, 20%. No one says you need to. It's not binary, right? It's not like I can only invest in stock market or I can do impact investing. It's not binary. You can do asset allocation.
Well, I mean, it's ironic as well, because if you actually read the websites of a lot of investment organizations, they'll talk about how they want you to solve a problem, but then they look at things like Facebook as solving a problem. Okay, yes, it does. But what if Facebook was also pushing a social impact purpose? Not getting too political about Facebook, but conceptually, actually what you're talking about within a social impact business, in my view, actually is what makes that business very investable and unique, perhaps quite often. They're not just in it to make money. And I know myself, now I'm building a social impact platform myself, that I can see that people want to work for those organizations too. So the recruitment process becomes easier too. And therefore the whole, getting talent is a big part of, again, of any VC's website. You say, we invest in the people. Well, to get the best people, yes, you still need to pay them well and all of that. But ultimately, it is about the purpose, right?
Yeah, totally. So yes, I mean, our story of getting off the ground, start with the problem: climate change, food insecurity, unsustainable food system. So we identify a giant problem that affects the whole planet, and then just work backward and say, what are the pillars? What are the components it takes to move the needle, and then start to tackle them one by one. So yeah, I mean, we can spend for hours to further discuss, but I mean, I guess the quick answer in terms of how to get us off the ground, that was the answer.
And getting into other countries very quickly. I know we are running out of time. I could go very deep with you on all these subjects because you've got so much knowledge, but getting into other countries, how did you do that?
Well, leverage, right? I mean, now once you start creating momentum, then that snowball effect start to happen. Getting the first, 10, 15, 100 companies or groups or people to join Green Monday or to adopt this change, of course, is difficult. But once that wheel starts turning, then momentum itself, it generates itself enough momentum. And then before you know it, people in, Thailand, Singapore, Taiwan, China, Japan, Europe, North America, they are calling us and they say, hey, how can I launch Green Monday? I see, company A is doing it and school B and restaurant C are now launching Green Monday. And I see that they're using Omniport. I see that they're using your products. Actually, we see demand in our market too. So now, of course, media and, PR and all that, and social media helps a lot because it breaks any physical barriers. It reduces, there's no distance between people now. I mean, no matter how far apart physically we are, but, social media wise, I mean, is as if that person or that company is right next to you. So I think all that help kind of accelerate our entry into many markets.
I think people do overlook the PR piece. I think, again, I want my listeners to pick up on this. It's kind of pushing all the buttons. You won Social Entrepreneur of the Year by the World Economic Forum. I mean, things like that definitely are not only recognition you deserve, but that's got to help too, right?
Well, just like anyone or any business, right? People are looking for companies that they can trust. So credibility, especially if we're talking about impact, if we're talking about social good. How do people know that you are real? How do people know that you are, authentic and practical at the same time? So having those kind of recognition on one hand, of course, is a huge honor. But on the other hand, it just adds that much more credibility to the organization. So I'm incredibly grateful to every award or every organization that has given us that, who has lent that credibility to us over the years.
Well, I could talk to you all day, and I want to. So I want you back on this podcast show. I'd like to go deeper into the social enterprise world. Yep. But I'd like to end the podcast on a light-hearted question. If you went back to the younger David and gave some advice, what would it be?
There's no need to fear about failure. Just, whatever, I think most people, right? You don't want to fail. And we take failure quite seriously. But you can definitely detach failing at something versus you as a person as a failure. It's completely separate. I mean, the most successful people in the world, Einstein, Edison, to more recently, Gates, Jobs. I mean, these are people who have failed 1,000 times in their life in various things, but it's failing at certain things. And then they use that as data point to improve, or actually to leapfrog to a new way of thinking. They use those so-called failures at certain things as data point, to tell themselves, door A, door B don't work, then let's go for door C or D. So actually, really, there's just nothing to fear. There's no need to be shy in terms of trying new things. I mean, if I can go back and say, hey, the 18-year-old or the 25-year-old version of David, I would say, actually fail even more, take more so-called risk, because the more you go through that process, the more experience and wisdom and knowledge you accumulate, which will be just vastly, incredibly important to the rest of your career and the rest of your life. So yes, that would be the one piece of advice I would share to myself, the younger David, if I could.
Thank you so much, David. Again. It's such interesting insights. I want to quickly sum up what I've taken from today. I've taken a lot, but these are just my highlights. I like to share this at the end of the podcast in case anyone skips too much of the podcast and misses something interesting. But a few things. First of all, I do think plant seeds to create good karma is an interesting mantra. I think it's a good analogy. I think the concept of building a company people can trust is actually a really important thing and overlooked. I hardly hear it, but that trust piece is so important. I like this idea that you've highlighted around the original thing that I heard growing up too, which is like reduce, reuse, and recycle, actually being quite redundant. And I've taken away a different 3 words, which is kind of switch, leverage, and renew, which to me is much more in line with action you can take, and I love that. I do think people need to think about solving a problem more than anything else, and then building a team around it. I think that's a very interesting first few steps. So many people say they need to raise money as a first step, and I say that absolutely not. What is the problem you're solving, and then get your tribe, begin to build your tribe. So what you've said there about solving a problem and building a team as the first few steps is exactly right. And I want the listeners to pick up on that. You didn't say raise a load of money and then start. It was about that purpose and then the team. And so, yeah, I think the final thing you said, which I also really think is core to this kind of entrepreneurial journey, is failure is a way of leapfrogging to success. I like leapfrogging. It's the first time I've heard it explained that way. So thank you for that. And it is absolutely true. It's a way of fast tracking to success. It's not the end unless you stop. So David, thank you so much. I'm going to go hug one of my Buddha statues after this, because I feel that I've had a lucky moment getting a chance to interview you. So thank you for your time today. Well,
thank you, and just hope everyone can have some good takeaway from this. Yes. So once again, appreciate for having me.
No, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you at Start Me Up Hong Kong in July. That will be fun, and look forward to seeing you then, David. Thank you for listening to the Good Luck Club podcast. We know you have thousands of podcasts you could be listening to, and you've chosen us. We, of course, feel lucky. If you want to hear more, please go to thegoodluckpod.com or go to any of our social media pages and share with us your views, your insights, and any way that we can improve what we're doing to make it a better experience for you. We wish you the best of luck.